Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. Here, this is the spot where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Welcome home, Brains. There's only one requirement to hang out on the edge, is that you open your big brain and close your small mind. Did you bring your thinking caps? It's time to put them on, because the conversation starts now. Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. How are you today? You're back at the spot, your favorite place, where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Today, we are going to go to Sydney, Australia, to visit with Genene Wilson. Genene is a finance maven. She knows her stuff. She's a former CPA. She owned her own business. Now she is working with individuals to teach them the foundation of money. She's the contributor in an anthology, as well as coming out with her own publication. She's coaching, she's helping people rebuild after, consciously uncoupling, divorce, which can be traumatic on all. But that and a whole lot more. We're going to have a great conversation. I'm looking forward to speaking with her. Let's welcome her to the show. How are you, Genene?
Hi, April. Look, I'm fantastic, although a little humid here today in Sydney.
I know that, humidity drives me crazy, especially if I'll speak for myself. If I'm a woman of a particular age, oh my God, it's no way to cool off.
It can be overwhelming, can't it?
It can be overwhelming, absolutely. So tell my brains a little bit about you and how you show up in the world.
Look, thank you for asking that, April. How I show up in the world is somebody who is really giving. It's important to me to leave a legacy. And, when I say that word legacy, I don't know about your listeners, but many people think that's just about money. It's not about money. It's about, championing financial literacy. It's about championing people building better businesses. And it's about, being a good person in the world and, leaving a lasting thought about myself and what I know. And so legacy to me also means sharing what I know.
Absolutely, it's an imprint. And we
That's
all
right.
want to leave our mark. Some people do it with music, some people do it with art. I do it with poetry or podcasting, but you are able to help not only the current individual, but the generations to follow. Me and my husband were talking about that and generational wealth. Is that a thing of the past? What do you think about that? Because I tell you, and I'll say it, Brains, some of these kids are so ungrateful.
Yeah.
It,
Look,
it, it's entitlement. They feel that they're entitlement. I have worked my fingers to the bone, and they think they're going to sit up and sop it up with a biscuit like it's gravy. It's not right. Were you seeing that in the world?
look, I see that all the time as well. But I think when you say, wealth, and transferring wealth to the next generation, it really is on you as part of that legacy building to teach the younger folks how to champion that wealth, how to manage it going forward. Because I think we all know, people of a certain age, that there's been many examples over long, centuries of a family building significant wealth, and then the next generations sort of manage it. They're a bit sloppy with it. They spend a bit too much, and then they give too much to the next generation. And after that generation, it's pretty much gone. I mean, I'm sure you can come up with name after name of who that's happened. And so for me, I think if you're building wealth, you consciously need to involve the next generations and the generations after that, because how can you expect them to know how to manage wealth if you don't teach them? Where are they going to learn that?
Well, I just finished a great book. It's called The Psychology of Money. And
Mm.
in that book, it talked about the rich versus the wealthy. I'm
Yeah,
wealthy
yeah,
because when you're rich, a lot of times people want to show their opulence. They want to have the big house, the big diamonds, the big cars. Oh, look at me. I'm this, I'm spending, but they can also be hanging by a thread
Yeah, you don't
because
know.
they are trying to be this overachiever. They're trying to be this shining light. They want people to keep up with them. But on the other side of that is wealth.
Yeah,
And wealth is being able to sustain yourself, have a savings, again, below your means, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
uh, have free time to be with your family, have good health, leave a legacy, love people, educate them. That is what is wealthy. Do you
yeah.
find that there's a significant difference between the two?
Yeah, and I agree with you, April, except I use the term rich with experience, with things to share. And wealth is something, that money that you're stacking away and using to generate future wealth. So wealth is that money-making machine that's going to sustain multiple generations, whereas experience, rich with experience, is really around, what you share. I feel that I'm rich with experience, but I also have built some wealth. And so, I guess I use both terms. And, I think that that's important to make that distinction. But you're absolutely right. There's a lot of show ponies. We call them show ponies in Australia. Lots of show
Oh,
ponies prancing around, demonstrating their wealth outwardly. Look at me, I'm
oh.
rich.
And you know what? And they probably are broke as a joke, really, or just living from paycheck to paycheck. It's the education and the psychology around money.
Yeah, and look, that's a great book. The Psychology of Money. I'm assuming you're talking about Morgan Housel's book. It's
Yes,
a
mhm.
fantastic
It
book.
is a
And I
fight.
think it really
Fantastic.
points out as well something that's really important to me and that I talk a lot about in my different modes of speaking and educating people through courses and so on and workshops is that, it comes down a lot to your money mindset. And look, we're impressionable as very young children, and we learn those lessons very early on in life, don't we? And so,
Well,
impression
I
counts.
can't say that because they're not financially literate.
Yeah. Look,
The
I understand what you're saying, but if you're, one of the things that I find quite astounding at the moment is because we've become very much a cashless society in
right,
Australia, and the government is pushing that, right? So the winners there are the big banks because they're just raking in fees hand over fist. But when you're tapping that card at the supermarket, at the, electrical goods store, at, wherever you're spending money, children aren't learning those lessons because the money isn't physically going through their hands. And
right,
so
right.
I like when I was young, you'd get to walk to the local swimming pool and get a cent to get in and 5 cents to spend on a bag of lollies or whatever you wanted, and you learnt the value of money. And I'm not certain that those lessons are being taught
No,
in a
they
cashless
don't because
society.
again, it's not a tangible thing. I
Mm.
remember when I had my first checking account, it was a mess. I could count, but I figured as long as I had checks, I had money, and that wasn't the case.
No, no,
And
that's
now in schools, they do not teach. It used to be a little economics class, like home economics and the wood shop, and they don't teach those things. These children have to learn to survive, but the currency is changing. Like you said, the big banks, they want cryptocurrency. They want to be able to see exactly what is going on with these transactions without the paper. Here, we just went to lunch and big sign, we don't take cash. I always have cash on me. In case of emergency, that's just how I like to roll with cash. So things have changed considerably. Let's talk to the person that is trying to rebuild their wealth
Yeah, look,
because those
I
people
don't
got to
know
go
about
now.
so much about America, but in Australia, still 50% of marriages around about that, and I think it's around 47%, that let's call that 50 freeze, of relationships are breaking down. And I think that from the clients that I worked with during my professional career, 30-year professional career, it was evident that it took in many cases 10 years or more, and some people never recovered financially from having to divide those assets up, who battled their way through the courts to get what they thought or perceived was their own, and that sort of thing. And so many people do need to rebuild financially. I think when that is your situation, that there's again, some of these mindset matters come into it. Because from my own experience, I've found that most women, and I'm generalizing here, most women are far more conservative when it comes to investing than men. And certainly, in terms of retirement savings, women in Australia have got a lot less, and I'm assuming that's the case in America as well
Let
because
me
of
ask the
career
question:
break.
is it conservative, or is it not knowing,
Oh, it's
or
somewhat
fear,
both.
right? Or
Yeah,
fear,
yeah,
because it's fine, but it seems like women, and I hate to cut you off there, but it just seems like women, a lot of them handle the money. The husband works, and here's the check, but they don't know where the bodies are buried. They don't know. They don't know where the 401k is. They don't know really what the mortgage is, what the balance is. They don't know if there's other offshore accounts. They don't know these things. And I think that if you're in a partnership, again, I run my household one way, everybody's different. But I think that there's a certain education there.
yeah.
Then
I I
that's the
like
check down.
I like the idea and advocate for people to have, if you've got a financial CEO in the house, like me in my house, and probably yourself in your house, April, that you sit down and you have those kitchen table conversations each
Absolutely.
and every month so that you know where you are, you know your financial situation. I would say that many people get drawn into signing documents that they don't understand or opening accounts that they don't know the sort, where
I'm gonna
they,
tell you,
they're.
I gotta stop you right there too, because I just got myself out of a big kerfuffle. I'm very, very protective about my credit and all that kind of stuff. But I helped out a family member, and I put my name on an account with them.
Mm.
And she says, "Well, there wasn't a problem till there is a problem." Well, now there's been a couple bounce checks. I don't bounce checks.
No,
So
and
now
it's
that
reputationally yours.
exactly, and then that causes me a smudge against my name with the bank. So
Mhm.
I'm so glad that you brought that up. Or there's a lot of women that will co-sign for a guy's car, or they will allow them to use their credit card, and then they're down at the bottom of the barrel, and they have really no one to blame but themselves.
Yeah, you've got to make informed decisions. You've got to follow, to some extent, your gut. You've got to get the right advice at the right time before you land yourself in hot water. And so those are the sorts of things I talk about. And to give you a really strong example, uh, April, a former client of mine, quite a few years ago now, her parents, a middle-aged woman, her parents and her husband all passed away within a 3-month period. And she had no idea where she stood financially. She was very, very nervous. She had her adult children off her hands, but she was still very nervous. And so she engaged with me to sort this mess out. And literally, this woman had lived on an allowance all her married life, raising the children, raising the family, doing all the things that, mums do, and on an allowance of about $200 a week. And she had no idea how to manage money or investments, or how to claim on insurance policies for life insurance or anything else. And it turned out this woman had over $20 million worth of assets that she had no idea of what to do with and what to do next. She was just completely and utterly overwhelmed and needed an enormous amount of support. Well, she didn't need to rebuild financially, but she needed to build her understanding and knowledge and literacy up to the level of those assets that she had, and just to manage them going forward, because she just did not know. And it was quite an emotional period for her, I'm certain. And so it can work both ways. Certainly in a relationship breakdown, you might end up with half of what you had before, or less or more, who knows. It depends on how the hammer falls when you you get that
Right,
judgment through the courts.
right.
And if you can be amicable about it, then you're probably going to save money, because let's face it, lawyers cost money, and often going to war on those sorts of things doesn't make a lot of sense because you've got to have deep pockets. But knowing what you need to come out of a relationship with, what you need to go forward, and what, having a sense of what's the reasonable person, what would a reasonable person do here, sort of makes sense to me, and I advocate for that. But knowing what you have and knowing how that's going to fall is another thing. Another recent example of a client went to mediation. We have mediation in Australia when relationships are dissolving, and we'd worked out what was the best case, what was the middle case, and what was the worst case. And in mediation, her former partner offered, half of the worst case scenario.
Hmm.
And so it was devastating because it's quite expensive. It's, $20,000 a day to go into a mediation. And, my answer to her was, we know what you want and you will get it, because we know that he doesn't want to take this further. But to go to that next step through the court system is going to cost $70,000 or $80,000 each. So I'd be saying, come to the party, let's work something out that's reasonable, or get ready because I'm ready to go.
Yeah,
um,
yeah, absolutely. To cut your losses. If it's gone, it's gone. But that takes a certain maturity. That's a whole nother conversation.
and it does, and that's the benefit. I think when engaging with financial advisors or business advisors or money coaches or whomever you're going to engage with, people often see that as an expense, but absolutely, it can get you on the right path. It can get you a better outcome, and so I always see it as a profit center, because you're going to be in a better position to make informed decisions. You're going to be ready for whatever comes your way. You're not going to be scrambling to make, and accept the worst offer because it's what's on the table. You're going to be ready for all of that.
But it's also your relationship with money.
Mm.
You know, who's in charge? Um, do you feel that you'll never have enough? Again, like I said, there's money there that you're not aware of. What is it going to take to sustain you long term? Are you going to go back to work? Do you still have young children? There's a lot of variables there
Yeah,
that create that
absolutely.
relationship. And,
Yeah.
are you doing it just to be ugly and evil? Or are you just trying to set yourself free? So you have to look at the emotional component and all of that.
Yeah.
What encouraged you to write a book?
Oh, look, I've done a few books. I've done 3 collaborative books in the Feminescent series, April, which was really speaking about how I came, who I am, the journey I'd gone on to get to where I am today, and, all the different little missteps that you might have made, or some successes, and so on. And then a couple of other opportunities came up. One is the Impact book, which is again a collaborative book. I'm a contributor in that, talking about leaving an impact and an imprint on the world, which we mentioned earlier. But the Live Well book, I wrote that a couple of years ago, and it's just due to be published this month. It's been a long time coming, but I just had worked with so many men and women who were going through things and didn't really know, what to do next. What were my next steps? What are the options for me at this point? How can I address my money mindset? Oftentimes people don't get what they need because they feel unworthy of getting it. So there's a whole range of emotions attached to it, certainly failure and guilt and all of that. And so just writing these things down and talking about different experiences of people I had worked with, obviously in a confidential way, but talking about other people's experiences, I think to some extent, I wanted people to understand that they're not alone, that
Right.
this happens frequently, but there is a way to work through it and to rebuild and to, go forward in a reasonable way. And sometimes that it means that people have to modify their spending, or make significant changes in their life. But when they work through those things and make informed decisions every step of the way, I think that they come to a better outcome personally, emotionally.
Right.
Would you agree?
They grow and evolve as a person.
Yeah,
And we're all going to, if you don't go through some adversity, you're not living.
yeah.
Because the things that hurt us the most in life are truly our best teachers. And
Oh, absolutely.
you can't buy your way out of situations. You can't lie your way out of situations. It'll all catch up with you. So you also have a
Absolutely.
podcast and a radio show.
Oh, look, I've been on the radio for a couple of years in Australia, my 88. It's on iHeartRadio. And just every week talking about little money tips or things that might be topical, economics and so on, every week. And the podcast, I brought that out a couple of years ago, and I've actually just resurrected it recently. During COVID, lots of people were feeling a bit lost. In business in particular, I had a really large business network, and so put together about 30 or so episodes just talking about different things that people could consider in those really tough times. So I thought that that was really valuable to give back to my community as well.
I
And
know.
so that was quite a successful podcast. And, people can take a listen. It's called Finesse Your Money. But one of the other things that I wanted to touch on today as part of my story is and I don't know how frequent this is, but I'm assuming it's probably similar across the globe. Um, People with power want to rob others of their ego and power. And so I was quite badly bullied in the corporate world, and was one of the reasons that I really wanted to escape corporate life and start my own businesses and, start speaking about my experience, not just about bullying, but about a whole range of things, and particularly around building your financial literacy up and building better businesses. But I have a TEDx talk that I have done called "Is Casual Bullying a Pandemic?" So people might want to look that up and have a listen. But I find it
Absolutely. We'll put the
incredible
show
that how
notes to
we,
that.
I find it incredible how sometimes people just want to destroy others, and I've never been certain of what that's about, but I do think it's just a power play.
Well, I heard that there's a term that you also use in Australia is the tall poppy syndrome.
Oh, absolutely.
And I was like, wow. So, it's all over
Yeah,
the globe. It's all
yeah,
over the
tearing
globe.
people down, yeah, for
Exactly.
your
And,
own benefit.
it doesn't make you, number one, it gives you wrinkles. It's not attractive, but it's useless. But hurt people.
Oh, it does. And that trauma lives on, and that trauma lives through generations, doesn't it?
Now, you were a woman in the financial world, so that was pretty much a male-dominated industry,
Oh, absolutely it is.
and so bullying there. Give me two or three examples of what you would perceive as a bully situation in the work.
Oh, look. Well, I can give you a very, very visual, if you like. Went into a meeting late one day in the boardroom with my team of people I worked with, all high caliber professionals, and they were all laughing and joking, and you kind of get drawn into going along with it because you're a little bit out of step with what's been happening, what happened before you arrived. And when I left the room, one of my colleagues said to me, "Oh, did you see what happened in there?" And I sort of said, "No." And they said, "Oh, you better go back in and have a look." And somebody had written derogatory things about our senior manager on the arm of the chair, which was broken. And I was just horrified. And at a later stage, some of those same people actually made a little video and took photos of things that they'd written on the board that supposedly I'd written on the board, and sent me those photos. And I'm like, why are you people doing this? This isn't funny. Who thinks this is funny?
It's
No
pretty
one ever.
juvenile. It's pretty juvenile. But if we get caught
Oh,
up in it, and we have to learn to stand up to the bully,
oh,
you know,
absolutely. That's
and
so important.
but you have to be strategic. I tell people here in America, you know what's going on over here. I don't even have to get into the politics. But the thing is you cannot fight a 21st century war with 1960 tactics.
No.
You've got to be strategic at what you do, even
Yeah.
angry. I'm not going to be angry. I refuse. It
Yeah.
takes too much of my time. People want you distracted. They want you off your game because if
Mm.
you're off your game, then you're an easy mark for them to come in, infiltrate, take your job, embezzle money, whatever. We have to be paying attention. And a lot of
Mm.
that is sometimes you got to step back. Sometimes you have to surrender. Sometimes you just have to take a deep breath and be the observer of your life.
Mm.
Watch what's going on. You don't have to do bad things to me to let me know if you're a bad person. I observe and watch how you treat others.
That's an excellent point, April. I'm very observant, and I take that away, take pause, and make my own decisions about what that meant and how to move forward. But I'm like you. I can't get involved in any of those arguments. I take pause, and I actually have to manage my own energy because I found that it really, literally destroyed my health. My health was in the toilet. It took me a long time to rebuild. It took a long time to work with a therapist, a professional therapist and coach to get my head right again, get my mindset right, and so that I could go forward and feel confident and comfortable in my own skin and my own body, and confident, I think, in the things that I talk about, even because that bullying eroded my perception of myself and what I thought I knew.
And you know what? We can agree to disagree and not be disagreeable.
Oh, absolutely. Of
I want to
course.
allow Genene space to like
Mm.
squash. I don't particularly care for squash. But if you like it and you come to my house, I'll serve it to you. That doesn't mean I'll put it on my plate, but that doesn't mean I'm going to discourage you from what you want to do. I think the world has become so polarized, and we are in this ugly echo chamber of negativity that
Yeah.
you have this tribal mentality that is us against you or me against you. Just be an independent person. Educate me. Take the time to talk to me, be it finance, love, relationships, divorce. Everything is open for negotiation. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And I think be human. That's my code. Be human.
Right, but it's crazy. So let me ask you some fun things because I this is my favorite part of the interview. I like to ask people some fun questions about them. If you were a flower, Genene, in the garden, what flower would you be?
Oh, I think probably an orchid. There's some really pretty purpley irises and orchids. I love orchids. I grew up in a little village on the Central Coast in New South Wales in Australia, and we had lots of rock orchids, and they were this brilliant yellow, and yellow and purple go beautifully together. I think they're on the opposite side of the color wheel, but I might stand corrected on that. But
Right.
yeah, orchids, love them.
Okay. If you were an appliance in the kitchen of all places, what appliance would you be?
Oh no. Oh, I don't know, a good knife.
That's good. No one's
As
been
sharp
a knife
and
yet.
strong.
Yeah, no one's been a knife yet. My favorite is a refrigerator.
Oh, right.
I just want to be somewhere where I can chill out, and keep it cool and keep
I'm
it
going to steal
cool.
that from you, April.
And that's absolutely fine. If you could time travel, go back to the past, stay here in the present, or project to the future, where would you land?
Oh, look, I think I'd land. Was there a march, a women's march through the city streets of New York with women's empowerment?
Oh,
Um,
wow.
uh, Often when I speak, I love that song "I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar," and I think that that was kind of the catch cry of that whole movement. I think without beating up on people, because as we've already agreed, you can agree to disagree, but you're certainly entitled to your own opinions. I'm very much about women's empowerment, and I think that it's important to be able to express your views. And be able to discuss those views, either way. And so, women's empowerment movement was a really strong thing in my mind when you say if I could time travel.
Well, I would go straight to the future.
Would you?
Yes, I've been there, done that, and got the T-shirt. I don't want to relive anything. It was great. It was a snapshot, a precursor to what possibly happened in the future. But I think that there is so much more, not just for the humanity as a whole. I'm
Mm,
a firm believer that we are at a crossroads
yeah.
in our life, in our world, in our society. You look at the the land, the food, the water, the politics, the relationships, our sexuality, our religious beliefs or metaphysical beliefs, wherever you are, all of that. And I can tell you, since COVID has pivoted, it
Mm.
has turned around. And I think COVID was kind of a time for us just to stop and pause, take a breath, reflect, and decide where we're going to go. And some people went backwards 15 steps. There's people that went forward, and there's people that are, that are stuck.
Yeah.
So we want to just kind of find our place in all of that. Um,
Mm.
if you could have a conversation with a 25-year-old Genene Wilson, what would you say to her?
I would say back yourself. I would definitely say back yourself. Look, I think when that sort of arrogance of youth, I think you maybe feel like you know a lot, but had I gone into my own businesses and really backed myself and not gone into the corporate world, I think I'd be in a different place today than where I am. Even though I've sold out of my business last year and, that was a successful sale, and I'm going on to do other things and I want to be involved in the future because I've got something to say and I want to help shape the future of humanity. I also am very mindful of the fact that I would have done things quite differently.
Well, again, hindsight being 2020. But those things, I believe, and from what I can hear, has created the woman that you are today.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely shaped who I am. And, to some extent, I don't want to change that. But if you just went back there and made that one decision that was different, that sliding door moment, you say, well, where would I be today? We'll never know, of course.
Exactly.
But
Now, do you have children?
I do. I have one adult child. He has three children,
Okay,
and, they're growing like weeds.
I know. So, about how old are your grandchildren?
16. My oldest grandchild has just recently started working with his father in the family business.
Mm.
And my next youngest is 13 and 11. So,
And
yeah.
what are you pouring into them?
Oh, look, I
Life
think it's
or
important.
finance, or because Nana knows.
Well, Nana does know. And so, look, I do take the time to build that relationship. And I think it is important. The older boy that's just started working in the family business, we've had conversations about, he wants to buy a house by the time he's 30. So, what does he need to do to make that happen? And having those conversations is quite important. And guiding and directing your children, getting involved at the school or whatever you can do and being a different voice. I think sometimes it's quite different from being a parent to being a grandparent. April, I'm not sure if you're a grandparent at all, but it is quite
I'm a
different.
grand muppy. My daughter wants no children. I get a grand puppy.
A
But you
dog
know what?
too.
But I'll take that too. I'll take that too. And a couple other things that I think that I'm sure that you do because you seem like that kind of person. But also being grateful.
Yeah.
Gratitude is latitude that raises your attitude.
Yeah.
Um,
I like to say, April, that everyone can have a 10 out of 10 day every day, because you can just know those things that make you feel good. And if you've had a 1 out of 10 day, we'll find nine things before you go to bed to make it better. Call a loved one, have give yourself a little treat, do something positive for your
exactly. Or
future. You can
even paying
find
it
things.
forward. Even being
Yeah.
philanthropic and paying it forward. A lot of times people always think that that's monetary, but it's not. My
No.
neighbor, I take her trash out. She
Mm.
absolutely loves that. I've got another neighbor, I'll babysit her kid.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
um,
my husband is very good at that. He mowed the neighbor's lawn when the husband was sick, and I absolutely agree that just a smile and a friendly word is enough to save people's lives.
it is because you don't know what someone else is going through. You don't
Exactly.
know what you don't know.
Mm.
If I were to come and visit you there in Sydney, outside of my favorite place, Sydney Harbor, I I could float down that harbor. It reminds me a lot of San Diego here. But at
Right.
night when all everyone has their lights on, it's just majestic. Where would you take me and what would we do?
Oh, look, I love the waterways. I am very much about water. It's my favorite place in the world. In fact, I'm coming to New York on the 21st of March, so in a few short weeks, and I'm doing a transatlantic cruise across to Europe. So I love the water. Don't get me started. But I think somewhere nearby to Sydney, a couple of hours away, beautiful Lake Macquarie. It's absolutely magnificent. And it's quite different to Sydney Harbour, which can get very, very busy. And so, a beautiful, relaxing time on Lake Macquarie and the nearby beaches. It's beautiful, a beautiful area.
Well, we still have to stop at the Opera House because there's a bartender there that makes a mojito, baby, like nobody's business. It was awesome. It was absolutely awesome. And so, in closing, Genene, what do you want your legacy to be?
Look, I really want people to know more about money and managing money because I think money it gives you freedom, it gives you choices, and it allows you to design a life that you want. And I encourage people to not fritter away days, weeks, months, and years by not managing their money. I think learn how to manage your finances and do so. I think people have been getting it wrong for a very long time. Put away money for savings first before everything else that's happening in your life so that you've always got some money there growing and working for you. And do all the things that are going to make your life easier because money gives you freedom. I mean, if you're saving from a young age, that 25-year-old, what would they look like now? Well, they could probably stop working at 50 or 55 because they've set themselves up financially. Money does give you freedom, and share it liberally. There's no need for greed. Be human. Um, and I think that those are the sorts of important things that I talk about a lot in my talks. I also teach April, as you know, so go and check out GeneneWilson.com for some financial literacy courses. I think they're applicable across the globe. And
Absolutely.
if you're based in Australia, I do run workshops and things and teach people how to build better businesses. So I'm getting some really great results for clients there.
Okay, well, we're definitely going to put all your contact information there. And when the books are released, please let me know so that I can share that with my audience. Brains, you heard what she said. Okay, it's about financial literacy. Learn the language.
Mm,
Money has a language all of its own. Who controls it? Um, how to make it work for you.
yeah.
That's when I learned how to make the money work for me, honey. I'm telling you, it was wonderful. I didn't have to be out there on the grind all the time, you know?
No,
I
no,
really
you
learned
don't.
I learned to have a little entrepreneurial thing, have multiple revenue streams, save, pay my taxes on time.
And don't forget to live life. Life is for living. It's not about
Right.
working from the cradle to the grave. It's about enjoying
Absolutely.
life.
Absolutely. That's what I said. And be careful about your credit, what you put your name on. Look at how to read your statements.
Yeah.
You may have a great financial planner, you may have a great bookkeeper, an accountant, but honey, there's nobody better than you to watch your money. Understand? Yeah, I mean, because we've seen some horror stories.
Oh,
People
absolutely.
that
Be
are
the
just,
gatekeeper.
yeah, I work in Hollywood and I have seen where at the end we've had to take collection for
Mm,
people that have gotten Grammys and Oscars and Emmys and all of this stuff because they weren't watching the store. And remember, it is a
mm,
business.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Your personal finances are as much a business as your business finances.
Absolutely. People will tell you they have cancer before they tell you they're overdrawn.
Oh,
They will. I mean, money is a very sensitive subject.
yeah. Yeah.
It's like
Absolutely.
politics and religion. People get very sensitive about their money, but that also falls in line with their self esteem and their self worth. And Genene is
Yes.
going to teach you how to do all of that from cradle to grave. We appreciate you so much. I'm looking for my card here so that you know where we are. Brains, I need you to go in and subscribe to to Spreaker. We have left Blog Talk. Blog Talk had to disband for whatever reason, made me sad. But we had over 80,000 over there. So we want to build that back up. All of the information will be provided for you there. We are still on LinkedIn. We are still on um, Facebook. We are still all over the planet, about 20 different outlets. So you'll still be able to Google On the Edge and the guests that you want to see, and their information will come up. So please go in and subscribe. Also on YouTube, you can see her beautiful face. So thank you so much, Genene Wilson, for being here, sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, and your joy. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, April. It's been wonderful. And thank you to your brains.
Brains, you see, she called you out. Okay. We're counting on you to do the right thing. Okay. Money is energy. Make sure that you keep it circulating. Thanks so much, Genene. You're the best.
Thank you, April. Bye for now.